and social media platforms. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.
I'm
With
very much
CITEZW,
aware
you'll never
that one thing that has been topical in Zimbabwe is the issue of media law reform and the polarizations that currently find themselves in our media sector in the country. And therefore, this is a great opportunity for us as citizens of Zimbabwe, resident here in BYO, that you make your contributions towards this media law reform. At the end of the day, we should be able to say, did we really achieve that which we had always aspired to achieve? And this is the platform. So the Zimbabwe Media Commission Bill makes additional provisions with regard to the Zimbabwe Media Commission, which was established by Section 248 of the Constitution and whose functions are detailed in Section 249 of the same Constitution, with the objective to protect the rights to the freedom of expression and the freedom of the media granted under Section 61 of the Constitution. The bill also seeks to extensively amend this Access to Information and Protection of Privacy Act, Chapter 1027, by repealing all provisions relating to the regulation and control of the media. The bill must also be read with and subject to various provisions of the Constitution, such as Part 1 of Chapter 12, relating to the nature of independent commissions supporting democracy, of which the Zimbabwe Media Commission is one. Part 1 of Chapter 18 with respect to general and supplementary provisions relating to all constitutional commissions, and Section 17 relating to gender balance. So after these consultations, the committee will sit down to deliberate on all of your views and draft a report which shall be presented in the National Assembly. Now, this is a parliamentary meeting, and because it is a meeting that constitutes a meeting of parliament, it is important that you air your views as freely as possible, since you all enjoy parliamentary privileges and immunities as embedded in the Responsible Act. Feel free to use any one of the languages used in Zimbabwe, and we will give representatives of organizations the first opportunity to present their views, and then we go to individuals. Those that might have submissions that are already captured in writing, you may submit those copies up front here to the clerk, who is seated to my right. Or those that would want then to make some follow-up submissions after this one, you can do so by emailing to clerk@palzim.gov.zw, clerk@palzim.gov.zw. So your contributions will not end by this physical interaction, but you will also be welcome to make further submissions after we have gone. So can I then now start the process by seeing those who want to submit first, by raising their hands. I'll start with you, ma'am, followed by you, sir, and others that want to do submissions, and the gentleman behind, in that order. Okay, so let's start with those that are standing for organizations. Then we come to individual contributions. I would love that as you make your contributions, wherever possible, if you have got a problem with a certain clause in the bill, indicate the bill to say this one, and then also maybe indicate what you would want it to be like. Thank you.
My name is Anastasia Ndlovu. I have something that I have to give to you, the Parliament. In principle, there is a threat to the practice of journalism and the provision of the bill. Then the issue is that subject to Section 10.3 of the bill, where in Section 9 to 18 of the Commission of Inquiry Act are infused within the bill, journalists can be subjected to a fine not exceeding level 5 or to imprisonment for a period not exceeding 6 months or to such fine and such imprisonment or obtained under section 14.2 of the Commission of Inquiry of Act. The issue is that the provision wherein journalists could be arrested for practicing is draconian and a threat to media freedom. And I recommend that the provision entrenching sections 9 to 18 of the Commissions of Inquiry Act gives excessive powers to the Commission and open to abuse and must therefore be revised to recognize journalistic freedoms entrenched in the Constitution. That's my submission.
Let me allow honorable members to seek clarity from you, Mandlov, before we maybe proceed to the next one. My first clarification that I would want is, you have indicated that you want that provision to be revised. Do you have any suggestion on how you want it to appear?
As I have stated that the provision entrenching sections 9 to 18 of the Commission of Inquiry Act give excessive powers to the Commission and open to abuse, and them therefore must be revised to recognize journalistic freedoms entrenched in the Constitution. So kumele libuyele liye kusisekelo sombuso njengani lina lisimele edalele eParliament libone ukuthi akumelani lamalungelo ethu njengabona ozindaba. Njalo okunye engizathanda ukukhuluma ngaphandle kwalumhlangano esilawo namhlanje ukuthi khangelanini ukuthi ilizwe limi njani, sathatha uzibuse nini, kodwa asila ma radio stations azimeleyo, asila ma newspapers azimeleyo. Uthe usuke eBhinga baba, akula community radio station lilalele Zambia, wena ungathi usuvela eParliament uzama ukuthi uyetshela abantu bakho kunzima ukuthi ubalaleli ubatshele ovela lakho eParliament. Ukanti ungaye emsakazweni oseBhinga khona ngale kulula ngoba wonke umuntu uzavula i-radio station. So sicela njengamalungu edalele eParliament liye kulungisisa khonokho.
Thank you, Chair. Section 10, subsection 3, and partly subsection 4, which you have referred to, try to create an animal under ZMC with the same privileges as a commission of inquiry and as governed by the Inquiries Act. I just want us to have a discussion around that. Are you comfortable? Because you have suggested that the provisions of section 9 to 18 that have been referred to apply to the Zimbabwe Media Commission, which are currently applying to the Commission of Inquiry, be reviewed. What that means is that we now need to go and deal with the Commission of Inquiries Act. Yes. Because once we agree that the Media Commission must have same privileges as the Commission of Inquiry is suggested by section 10. Subsection 3. It means that we have agreed in principle, and therefore we now need to come back with another bill. Now, my question to you is, are you comfortable that the Zimbabwe Media Commission has the same privileges as a Commission of Inquiry? That is a matter of principle, because it then has its own ramifications if you are to agree or not to agree.
I agree.
Then once you say you agree, it then takes us into the details of the Inquiries Act. And what it means now, you cannot amend the provisions of another act with this current act. It now means we need to go and advocate to the executive that there is an Inquiries Act which has these provisions, which are best suited in their work. However, their privileges are now also affecting other commissions. Can you deal with it? But you see how we are going to have the merry-go-round. I wanted us to understand that. So that if you are going to agree that the Media Commission have the same privileges as the Commission of Inquiries under the Inquiries Act, it will mean then that the provisions we have to apply. which provisions you said you are not comfortable with?
Maybe Mandlovu, what is Honorable Mpofu ufuna ukwengezelela khona apho?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you for your presentation. I think what's very important, as the Honorable Chair said, is that we get your views on the specific clauses and generally on the bill itself. You raised a very important point concerning what you have submitted as a draconian, clause here. It is very important, although you tried to give an alternative. Do you mind actually saying if there is a potential infringement, what would you think should be an alternative to that, to what you consider as draconian?
I'm sure, Mandlovu, what has made honorable members to seek a clarification is that in your submission you did not say you want that clause to be removed, but instead you said you want that clause to be revised. Now, it is that aspect of revision that we are looking for, to say, what exactly do you think, because it's different from someone who says, let this clause be removed, because once it is removed, then the Inquiries Commissions Act does not apply anymore. But if you want it to be revised, then maybe it is important for you to educate us. How do you want it to be revised? What should it appear like? So that when we sit down also to deliberate, we are able to capture the real mind, the real rationale behind your submission.
As long as izamelana lesisekelo sombuso esisiphiwayo kusisekelo sombuso ukuba thina sisebenze njengabonozindaba, kungangcono sisuswe.
All right, I think that's very clear. Right, the next one nominated to make submissions. Who was the next one? After Mandlovu. Bekulo babo semuva ngale. Asesaba madoda. All right, it's okay. Othi siqalise ngobaba, all right, siyabuya khona ngapho. Othi siqalise ngobaba la.
All right. My name is Innocent Kurwa. I'm a retired journalist. The first point, Chairman, I would like to address is the ZMC as a Chapter 12 institution. Chapter 12 institutions, to my understanding, are supposed to engender and deepen democracy and democratic governance in the country. Now, when I look at ZMC and the aspect of the minister in terms of the appointments, which are in section 7, and secondly, the issues of the minister in section 10, subsection 8, being able to issue a certificate to stop any inquiry. To me, that is the first thing that goes away from Chapter 12 institutions. And my subscription or my suggestion for Section 7 and other aspects where the minister is, that the minister must be removed totally from involvement in the ZMC Act or bill. The ZMC must report to Parliament and be answerable to the public via Parliament. That's my first prescription. My second prescription as to the minister in section 8, in section 10, subsection 8, being able to issue a certificate, then this means the minister can willy-nilly stop any investigation. I would like that totally removed from the Act. Okay. I have other points that I will address later.
Okay. Thank you for your submissions. I think they are very clear. May the mic go to the back there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mine is just a suggestion.
Your name first, sir.
My name is Pamina Tuso. I'm a farmer. I feel that this bill should address the multiplicities of bodies which regulate the media in Zimbabwe. For example, we have the Media Commission, which accredits journalists in Zimbabwe. Then after that, we have, like during elections time, we have ZEC. Journalists are allowed are required to register with ZEC, paying fees. Yet they've also paid at ZMC. Let's come to sports. We have got PSL, we have got rugby, we have got all those sports unions. You are required to pay fees when you want to register with those associations. Yet you have already paid money at ZMC. So we feel that we should have convergence in the regulatory media framework in Zimbabwe. One board which regulates the operations of the media, what is happening currently. That is my submission.
Okay, thank you. There is Uspanda, next lap.
Good morning, Honorable Chairman. Good morning, members of the committee. May you allow me to go through what I've set down and put together as my thoughts on what I believe should be the ideal for the media in Zimbabwe.
After introducing yourself, yes, please, you do that.
My name is Nkulule Uspanda. I'm a journalist based in Bulawayo, but national in character. I stand before you today with 22 years of journalism experience behind me. It might sound small size, but these have been years that I've dedicated to serving Zimbabwe's media. It has been a landscape which has seen the good and bad side of Zimbabwe's politics and challenging economic situations. It has been a life that we've tried in all our might to tell the Zimbabwean story, its successes and failures, despite the challenging macroeconomic, social, and political environments that have played out of the Southern African nation, which this year turned 39 some 5 months ago.
Band. Ngicela senze so. Ngicela leyo nxa kusenza i-document yakho usinike yona thina. So that maybe at our spare time njenge committee we can then go through it. But meanwhile usichayele nje okungama points ukuthi lapho sola khona leli bill kungaphi. Lapho ufuna lengezelelwe khona libe ngcono kungaphi ngayiphi indlela.
Okay, Chairman.
I think ngaleyo ndlela kusincedile.
I was going to go there. It's just that it's a contextual kind of presentation. Anyway.
Okay.
I think my most favored approach in terms of media regulation in Zimbabwe is a self-regulatory approach as compared to state regulation. In this I mean that there is need to allow journalists like doctors, lawyers, and other institutions to regulate themselves. Because what the state regulation would obviously do is to tend to criminalize the profession in the event that journalists make what might appear as mistakes to those that are in corridors of power. So I would believe that there will be need to allow the media to be able to have a peer review mechanism, which is self-regulation as compared to the state regulation. If you look at the bill, as it has been proposed by government, it would somewhat amount to what you call old wine in new wineskins. Because there are elements where criminalization of the profession remains embedded in the new provision, in the new proposed bill. So I believe that at a certain point, government itself has no role whatsoever in regulating the media. And there is need to leave that space to media players to regulate themselves, because they have shown already that they are able to do that by way of coming up with a body that is able to rein in on journalists if there are any issues through what is called the Voluntary Media Council of Zimbabwe. This is a body that stakeholders sat down and formed in, if I say stakeholders, I mean all the relevant players in the media, that is independent and private media. So I think in the long and short of it, government should let the media regulate itself, and through a self-regulatory mechanism. I'll hand over the document to you for your perusal. Thank you.
Thank you. There is a gentleman this side. Maybe let's just start with the lady at the back, then we come with the gentleman there.
Thank you. My name is Abigail Siziba. I'm a resident of Lawe from Ward 6, a local government practitioner and also a student in journalism. My submission is on the Section 8 of the bill, which gives powers of the Commission to investigate issues related to media on its own. And I believe these are excessive powers, and my suggestion would be that this section be removed so that complaints to be investigated are done through registered specific complaints by identifiable complaints, so that the Commission does not abuse these powers. And my second submission is on Section 3 of the bill, which does not set limit for term of office for chairpersons of the Commission, and I believe this is outer the tenets of good governance. And my suggestion would be that there should be set time for the term of office for the chairpersons of the Commission to observe good governance, because we believe if someone stays in office for unspecified time period, there could be abuse of the office through things like corruption. Thank you.
Thank you. Give the gentleman that is at the far end there.
Good morning. My name is Admire Kudita. I'm a journalist based in Bulawayo. Section 21, subsection 3 of the bill, just like AIPA calls for, those harsh penalties against what they consider to be the offenders, for periods not exceeding a fine of level 6 or imprisonment for a period not exceeding 6 months, and so forth and so forth. This is obviously an attempt to smuggle through the back door the criminal definition offense that was struck off by the statutes.
So, excuse me, sir, excuse me. Can you assist us to follow? You said on
Section 21
of the bill.
Yes, of the bill, ZMC bill, subsection 3.
Okay, all right, I understand. You can proceed.
Yeah, you broke my flow.
Sorry?
You broke my flow.
Yeah,
my
sure.
stream of consciousness, but I was on course. Okay, anyway, you're smuggling back what was struck off the statutes by the Constitutional Court in 2016, and it's obviously retrogressive. And another point is that it is also a violation of Section 235 of the Constitution, subsection 1, to have the minister running the management of ZMC. Why would the minister desire to do that? It's obviously an infringement of the independence of Chapter 12 institutions as provided for by the Constitution. So I think that having the minister monopolize the power to, to govern or to run the conduct of the media in Zimbabwe is in itself inimical to the spirit of constitutionalism. A constitutional democracy must have as many people as possible determining or setting the course of the direction of a certain profession or even of a certain society, not just one person arbitrarily and, arrogating to himself all that power. So the question is, why would the government want to do that? Because it's not according to international best practice in any case, and even against the Constitution. So what is the reasoning behind that if it's not to muzzle press freedom? I think we need a conversation around whether journalism or the media is a public good or not. And if allowing journalists is instrumental to the development of progressive societies, and if we agree that that is the case, then we have to consider that there is a parliament that should have oversight over such an institution or such a profession. And moreover, as our colleagues have already indicated, lawyers regulate themselves, doctors regulate themselves. So what is the reason why journalists have to be regulated by one minister? Obviously, we've already seen what has happened in the past, especially even with state institutions, how one individual can have so much power, and it has led this society on the course of destruction. Obviously, we're not doing very, very well with regulation by one single person, one single entity. So I think the brain trust of this nation must be tapped into. We have parliamentarians that are educated, that are enlightened. Let them be the ones who have the final oversight over the profession if self-regulation is not allowed. So strike off all those things that have got to do with criminalizing the profession of journalism.
Very clear. Very clear. Right. There's another. Okay. Yes.
Sounding. Thank you very much, Comrade Chair, members of the committee, for affording us this privilege. My name is Asakhe Waniwa. I'm the managing editor of Zim Papers Bulawayo branch. This subject we are discussing today concerns us, and I think it will concern the future generations. Hence this interest from media practitioners. What I want to address is the issue of co-regulation. ZMC already is in the Constitution, so arguing about removing it, I think he is trying to move mountains. But what I think is very practical is co-regulation. What do I mean? ZMC should concern itself about accreditation administrative issues. But when it comes to professional conduct, then it must be left to another body, which someone has already mentioned. Or if we believe it can be strengthened is another issue, where we are saying professional shortcomings should be addressed. People who are injured by the media need redress. Then that particular body would then attend to that. Maybe if people are not happy or the aggrieved parties are not happy, then ZMC might come in as an appeal body where people can appeal from that regulation. As already mentioned by my colleague here, other professions are already regulating themselves. And I believe it's only the professionals who are able to checkmate their colleagues, who are able to investigate any complaints coming from members of the public. I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think allow us to seek clarifications I'm seeing my colleagues have their hands up, they're itching to seek clarifications. I'm sure from every one of the speakers that have spoken previously, you can seek clarification. Let me start with Honorable Mpofu.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. And thank you all for your wonderful submissions. Perhaps I could start from, I go reverse. Start with you, Mr. Waniwa. You have given an alternative, a proposition rather. You say that you do point out correctly that ZMC has already been given certain functions and powers by the Constitution. And then you say, well, but your view is that maybe they should concentrate on admin issues. And then the professional side, the professional conduct should be, sorry, assigned to another body. Do you mind, you just said someone else has hinted at it. Do you mind specifying on that one?
I think it was Mr. Spand, I think. The Voluntary Media Council of Zimbabwe, which was already doing that. In fact, they are already presiding over complaints.
Thank you. I just wanted to be very clear. Honorable Chair, with your indulgence, Miss Abigail Siziva talked of, she did say that the Commission has excessive powers. But she then said they should not, she left room that people could be arrested, actually. People could be investigated. But it should not be the Media Commission, but they should be investigated. She said another body could be left to investigate. Would she mind suggesting to us who could investigate if the Commission should not?
Okay, my suggestion was the investigations can be done if they are registered complaints through specific identifiable complainants. Because my issue will be if there is no registering of the complaints through identifiable individuals, the Commission could abuse this power to do investigations even without the public complaining of a certain media individual.
Thank you, thank you. The gentleman who was disrupted, whose floor was disrupted, you talked of best practice in terms of you passionately are concerned, that the minister has too much power here, that it should actually be scrubbed off. And you say best practice doesn't give the minister that kind of power. As the Honorable Chairperson said in another forum, it's always good to empower your committee. Do you mind giving us what best practice does?
Well, under the current wording of the bill, the Commission cannot make substantive decisions without consulting and seeking approval from the minister, just as an example, which is not appropriate. And when you consider what's happening in other countries and other democratic societies, that is not the case. The minister does not have that kind of power. The constitution of ZMC therefore becomes subservient to the powers of the minister, which is contrary to the spirit of the constitution. Let's have constitutionalism. So that's best practice already there, even when you look at the constitutional framework under which the bill is being formed.
Thank you. Do you mind, I'm sure you're going to give a written submission. Do you mind being very specific as to what is best practice, rather than just saying there is best practice in other jurisdictions?
Best practice is allowing self-regulation, as my colleagues have already hinted to.
Yes, do you mind in your written submission giving best practice somewhere. I think it will help your committee.
Okay, no, I will do that, yeah.
Thank you very much. Tusong made a very wonderful contribution. You were concerned about fees. I'm sure you were talking about multiple fees. You charged for this, charged for that. Are you suggesting that once fees have been paid to the ZMC, then fees to ZEC, fees to the PSL, fees to anything else should be scrapped? I'm not quite sure. I just want your clarification on that one. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Yes, you can go ahead.
Yeah, basically that is what I am suggesting, that all those fees from other bodies should be scrapped, because what's the point of registering with ZMC when you also ask to pay? Mind you, you'll be also paying tax when you are registering for ZEC, that's taxation. So there is this is of taxation also.
Okay, honorable members, clarifications?
Thank you, Chair. Mine is directed to my colleague, the retired journalist. Sorry, I had not picked up your name. You referred to Section 8 of the bill, which gives the minister powers to issue a certificate to stop certain investigations based on a limitation of some rights, as enshrined in Section 86, subsection 1 and 2 of the Constitution. Now, I really want your assistance here. We are trying to seek to give effect to rights and freedoms of the media as enshrined in Section 61 and Section 62. However, that is of the Constitution. Yeah. However, our Constitution in Section 86 then also has limitation of these rights. And it specifies areas of limitation: defense, trade secrecy, in the public interest and everything. And now, where an investigation concerns issues like defense, trade secrecy, as enshrined in the Constitution, whom then do you suggest should then come in and say, this cannot be held in public? But Section 8 simply tries to give the minister to say, yes, investigations can continue, but they must continue in camera. So who then should play that role? I want us to assist each other, so that at least, because the minister will come and defend using Section 86. And us as parliamentarians must be able to defend you and your views. Now, I want to extract your views to say, while the Constitution gives limitation to some certain rights, and Section 8 is trying to empower the minister to actually play that role, and you are not comfortable with that. So whom do you think should play that role?
Thank you. My name, by the way, is Innocent Kurwa. I appreciate what you're saying, Mr. Chikwinya. My feeling about the minister's role is that if there is a professional board, there's been a vehemence here to VMCZ. If there are professional bodies and there are investigations going on, and the minister or the government per se is uncomfortable with certain things, rather than be able to issue a certificate outright, the minister should approach this professional body and seek clarification or limitations in discussion. Because to me, this is very open-ended. While it is in compliance with the part of the Constitution, it is open-ended. And when I was looking at it, I could not help feeling that at any time, the minister can just stop you investigating things. And this section does not allow anybody else to cross-examine or examine the minister as to the reasonableness of his action. If it is maintained as it is, there must be limitations as to a test of reasonableness. Or, as I said earlier, let the minister go to a professional body and seek that they limit and point out. Then they at least agree. rather than give him so much power.
Okay. Honorable Puti wants also to seek clarifications.
Taboga tate chairman. Chekutanga ndandikumbila kubuzwa kuna tate Sibanda. Tate Sibanda malebane kwe self-regulation. Ndadaka kuti tiwisise kuti amuti self-regulation ini chamunobe masola. For instance, ku co-regulation saku umwatongo chenesa mukapamidzila kuti self-regulation yagala inotiwa kwa mama professional nonga buloya ne budokotela. So ndanditi ndiwisise kuti chamuno hakila kuti kube ne self-regulation kusina umwe nkwinya ntome unobona chamuno tama netobelese sakose kwa mnobo mutama ini. Ndeche kutanga echo. Antos bagut muga kukhandula yini before I proceed kene ningandila mbele.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Puti.
Gombe Sibanda ungakaphenduli khonapo. I just want to ride on his clarification, but that one you can answer it. But I think in a broader sense, we can ask any one of the participants to also try to clarify on the issue of self-regulation. My brother there spoke about international best practices. Is there any country where a body like VMCZ is really charged with the responsibility of that kind of regulation? Is there any such country? Because some countries that I have looked at, they have got some kind of a body where the interests of the consumers of your products, the public, are represented. And maybe other stakeholders are also represented. But VMCZ, as an example, is a purely body of journalists without the other stakeholders. So do we have anywhere in the world where you have such a body standing on its own to regulate media practices? Thank you. Then after that clarification, Honorable Puti will continue.
Okay, if I would, if you allow me, Mr. Chairman, to take you back to the formation or the idea behind the Voluntary Media Council of Zimbabwe. It was founded on that principle to say there is need for other representatives of society to also be on that body. So if you go through the layout of the VMCZ, there is representation of almost all the critical players. That makes it the body to go to if you really want to deal with issues of professionalism. Because there is a tendency by governments to want to have a grip on the media by all costs. So in the end of it, you realize that you have this criminalization of the profession, that if someone makes a mistake, you, like in the proposed bill, there's a provision that says someone has to go to jail for a minimum of 6 months. You have a doctor who performs an operation on a patient, and that patient dies. The only word that you can get is sorry. That is life. But we are dealing with a mistake that a journalist has made. Does that warrant 6 months in jail? If you compare, like I said, Honorable Puti, you're saying we want to conduct our business as the media in some sort of a hideout.
I did not say that.
No. By saying that without anyone watching, it means that someone is...
Sorry, Babaspan. All that I said was, you made mention of self-regulation as a recommended approach. But I'm seeking clarification on why you think self-regulation will be better than co-regulation, because somebody has you already mentioned that state regulation is not progressive. I'm putting the two that are left together, co-regulation and self-regulation, and asking you why you think self-regulation would be best, not that I said you want to be.
All right. Like I said, we were even media stakeholders are of the view that self-regulation is the idea, because they believe that there are certain measures that have been put in there to deal with the errant behavior of journalists, but within the confines of the media itself, such that you don't have to have someone going to jail like I was making reference. If there is an issue or there is a mistake that one has made with regards to facts, there is a way of bringing that journalist to account to say, where did you get this? If there is proof that there is a mistake that was made, there are steps that can be taken to solve that problem without having someone to be imprisoned. I think in the event that the media can't get self-regulation, as it has been alluded to, then the media is amenable to co-regulation, like you put it. Thank you.
Toboka, Chairman.
I'll come to you.
Just
To seek clarification. You wanted to respond to
I wanted to add
the concept of co-regulation. Okay, let's allow you to add.
I will draw a parallel with the Legal Practitioners Act of the country, where the lawyers are regulated by an act of parliament, but they exclusively on their own appoint people to the Law Society of Zimbabwe and deal with all the professional issues. So, taking cognizance of the fact that, as Wanua pointed out, that the commission, the ZMC, is already in the Constitution, and the ZMC bill would become a statutory regulatory framework. And we also take cognizance of the fact that I think in October last year, government policy on media, as pronounced by cabinet sayings or something, suggested that they recognized self-regulation, the existence of some body of self-regulatory. The meeting point to me would be co-regulation, where there's basically the Voluntary Media Council, which, Mr. Chairman, is not just made up of journalists only. It's made up of a lot of other people. For example, its very vibrant media complaints system is headed by retired Judge George Smith. Yeah, and you got people like this lawyer, Mchadea, that are in it, who is the chairman. So there's a lot of people there that add a lot of vibrancy. This to me would be the basis of the professional side coming into the and meeting with the statutory side, and also taking cognizance of what I averred to as the cabinet saying last year that they recognized this. Then the Voluntary Media Council would deal, as Wania pointed out, with professional aspects, things like infractions, because they are the best. They already have a code of conduct and the ethics that every media house in this country is subscribing to, although some are doing it nicodemously. Yeah, I underline nicodemously. So they can handle that part. Then the ZMC becomes the appellate board, and the ZMC can concern itself with issues of licensing media houses, licensing journalists, and other administrative aspects, and leave the professional side to Voluntary Media Council.
I think you are coming out clear. Honorable Put, you can continue with your seeking clarification.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you very much for clarifying that. I think it's very clear. I want to say there is constant mention of fears of too much powers given to the Commission and too much powers given to the executive. I'm tempted to want to understand the magnitude of this fear, where really it emanates from. When we go to the Constitution of Zimbabwe of 2013, Section 248, subsection 2, that says members of the Zimbabwe Media Commission must be chosen for their integrity and their competence in administration and their knowledge and understanding of human rights issues and the best practices in media. That definition being enshrined in the Constitution, does it not lessen the fears that people might have on a commission, which in this case, the commission is not chosen by the executive, as you extend your fears to executive? But I also want to mention on the further fears of too much powers. Section 7, Secretary and other staff of commission and experts. It deals with the appointment of the secretariat. How do you propose the adherence to the principle of separation of powers if executive as a body or as an estate that runs the state with the two others? Well, I embrace that we journalists also form the fourth estate, by the way. How then do you propose that there be strong adherence to the principle of separation of powers, where we are going to have Parliament playing its oversight role over executive in terms of how such issues would have been coordinated, if the said executive is not included in the process as proposed here, that they should not superintend over or be responsible for deciding on appointments of the secretariat? Lastly, I wanted to understand from you, colleagues, what you propose be the level to which something can be said to be handled by a body, not the one that you proposed should be a partner in the core regulation. You made mention of VMCZ. Right. In the turn of the millennium, we had a very strange situation in the journalism of this country, where one Basil Don Peter did injustice to this good profession, according to the results that then came out. But also, we had in the medical fraternity, one Dr. McGowan, who almost had the similar misconduct. The civic society organization in this country advocated that Dr. McGowan be charged as a criminal, not as a doctor. To what level would you think that issues such as were committed by Peter be deemed criminal, and who then is given the power to superintend over such cases?
Right. So these were general clarifications. They are not specifically directed to any presenter. So that being the case, it means that I'm going to open up to those that want to respond to the three clarifications that the honorable member has set forth. So I hope that's what you are dealing with only, is it? I hope you are responding to that, to him. All right, I'll start with you, Swithen, followed by him, and then him there.
Okay. Here. I want to respond specifically on the issue of professional bodies. And because you cited Dr. McGowan, I want to say that I was particularly intimately involved with that issue. In the case of Dr. McGowan, he was actually being shielded by the media, by some sections of the media. But what actually happened is that the professional bodies themselves recommended to the parents, Mike Kamina, that Dr. McGowan be prosecuted. And because he had some political clout being related to Dr. Timothy Stems and the First Family, presentations were made to President Robert Mugabe. After the president allowed for the prosecution, Dr. McGowan was actually convicted. And you notice that after that, all the professional bodies that he tried to go actually barred him. So it's actually consistent. What I'm trying to say is it's consistent with what Brother Innocent Kuro had earlier on mentioned too.
Are you therefore, can I say,
yes,
am I getting you right to say that you are therefore saying that the professional bodies, even the professional body that will be controlling the ethical standards of journalism, should have the power to recommend prosecution, as happened in the medical profession when the board recommended the prosecution of Dr. McGowan?
Yes, suffice to say that is occurring in an esteemed environment of self-regulation, because this is where we are going. And you notice that in the case of Dr. McGowan, it was actually the medical health professions that gave that recommendation.
Okay.
The other examples that I gave were political interference, which are of not much significance.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I've made the point.
I appreciate that explanation. Can you give the mic to the other gentleman if he wants to add something? Let's not repeat what has already been said.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry I walked in late. You said something that I was almost going to say. But let me add this, that, by the way, I'm Kudzana Msengi. I'm a freelance journalist. When we have self-regulation, it then helps us to deal with these issues, as in the case of Dr. McGowan. Some of you might recall the case of another doctor, let me say doctor in quotes. I can't remember the name of the bogus doctor, but he practiced in Berengwa, I think. He was a foreigner. He was later deported when it was found out that he was using fake qualifications. And he had done quite a bit of damage. So the long and short of what I want to say is what the honorable member is presenting actually is what we are advocating for, that if we have a professional body, as peers, we can then, direct each other in terms of our conduct, our ethics, and so forth. And then we recommend, because there will be, like in the case of Dr. McGowan, I'm sure he was a qualified doctor who went rogue. But in the case of the other doctor that I'm talking about, I mean, the doctor, he was fake. And how it was established that he was fake, it was because there's a professional body that then does the checks and balances and so forth. So for me, that's the ideal thing, self-regulation or co-regulation.
Okay, give it to my brother there.
Zinyange Anton, sorry I came in late, but I managed to hear about criminalization and the executive powers.
being a freelancer, I'm a freelancer,
We are treated as the lesser journalist
By who?
by the state and
Okay.
the other journalists who are full-time.
I want you
So-
appreciate. I wanted to understand really
Yes,
who
yes,
is
yes, yes. By both wings. It's just like when you go in, ZBC Chronicle, go in, freelancer, meet up aside. So, and the bodies also, yes, they do recognize us when they want the AGMs and all that. But when it comes to representation, full representation, I don't know how that can be handled. And when I say the state, I work with visuals, and many others do. They have faced the similar predicament. The state will just demand, for example, footage from me. I'm a freelancer. If I'm going to drive to a certain place, it's my cost. And they just, I think, or I feel that that's executive powers, where they say, ukaramane footage talk charger. Give us the footage. Like, it's my work. And the ZMC also can't cover me that because they're the ones who give me accreditation. Talk to Raj. We will not accredit you next time. So I'm not sure how that will be handled in this proposed new bill, but I think there should be focus on protection of freelance journalists because we lack representation in terms of the law. Kana tikasamanyira ku ZHL, we are doomed.
Okay.
Yeah.
I suggest, my brother, that I leave that honors to you and your colleagues in the media fraternity.
But
to sit down and come up with a measure to say, how do you think there will be fair treatment of all forms of journalists that do exist? Then when you have that kind of a position, then let's have it coming to us. If it is, if it suits being incorporated into this bill, so it shall be. But if it fits in any other one of or more of the bills that are still coming as well, we will try to make sure that it is fused in it. But we want your position. We don't want you to ask us questions so that we give you our positions. It's not about our positions. It's about your positions as the media industry. You know better. You are in the field. You know better than us. Okay. Any other submission? Let me give those two brothers there. Before I come to you, I think let me give one who hasn't made any submission. The gentleman at the back. I'm seeing again the other gentleman who has just walked in. The problem with people who are just walking in is that you take us back to where we started. That's the tragedy. But I'll give you the benefit of doubt.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Asakhe Kodoki. I'm a resident in Bulawayo, Ward 21, and I'm an entrepreneur practicing around Bulawayo. According to the criminalization of journalists and stuff, I heard Mr. Spander, they said something about if a journalist makes a mistake, it's not fair for them to be punishable up to 6 months in prison, something like that. But speaking from a layman point of view, I think 6 months is a bit lighter, not to offend anyone, though, because we've seen now journalists operate around town. They can take you totally out of business. As a businessman, your reputation can be trashed totally by journalists who are reckless. They don't make proper investigations. And after doing that, you find out all you get is a sorry. For instance, there is one of those twins who were working so hard, working on their brand. One of the lady twins was said to have infected her boyfriend's child with HIV. And you know, the story ran like wildfire. So it went international, only to find out that lady had to be tested and presented the HIV status public. She was not even HIV positive. As a media actor, her career was totally trashed. So from someone who's working out there a businessman, a artist, I think it's a little bit fair. The bill stands not to protect the layman more, but it's now focusing on the journalists and the professionals in the trade specifically, okay? So I think, I don't want to offend anyone, so to say, but I think we should also put in place penalties which will make our professional journalists work thorough on their investigations and quite a lot of other stuff. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's a true feeling of a stakeholder, which you as people in the media fraternity have to deal with, you have to confront. You cannot simply rubbish it away. You know, you were equating yourselves to lawyers and to medical doctors, for example. But I believe the power that a journalist has is far, far much more extensive than that of a lawyer or of a medical doctor. When a lawyer messes up, is messing up for a particular single client. But when you communicate to millions, and the damage can be to a lot of people. So I think as you even continue making submissions, we are not really opening a new debate. I'm saying it's something that you have to think about. It's something that you have then in your submissions to allay fears and say, how will innocent citizens be protected against reckless and rogue journalists? So those are things that you have to look at. I had already said the gentleman at the far end there.
Good morning. My apologies. I was not here late, but I just went out to answer a phone. Sorry, sir.
Okay, it's all right.
Okay, my submission will be a little bit different from the ones that the previous speakers have talked about. I just want to talk about the sustainability part. Section 8 of IPA, if I may say, talked about the media fund. But when you come to the bill, when you go to part 4 of the bill that talks about the media fund as well, it omits the establishment of that media fund. When I was doing my comparison from IPA, looking at this bill, I can see there is a lot of gap there. It omits that.
Make your suggestion.
My suggestion is that the media fund be established or be included in the new bill. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, there is an honorable member who wants to seek clarification.
Thank you, Chair. My clarification is on my brother, a freelance journalist. You said you are involved in visuals. Section 2 of the bill speaks to interpretation of words in the act or in the bill currently. And you would find that it tries to define a media practitioner as means a person engaged in the writing, editing, or transmitting of news and information to the public, and includes a broadcaster, a journalist, and an editor. I have here with me an accreditation card from Zimbabwe Media Commission of a certain journalist, again a freelance. And the freelance only applies to the organization. So if this person was working for Zim Papers, under organization it was going to say Zim Papers. So I am not sure. I'm trying to engage you on where is the belittlement coming from between a Zim Papers journalist or an AMH journalist and a freelance journalist. To the extent now, if it is there, I want you to suggest, because I thought the definition of a media practitioner, of which you are, equates you to the same rights and privileges, right? And then the Zimbabwe Media Commission simply accredits a media practitioner, and then it simply specifies the organization and does not necessarily belittle anyone. So I want us then, in terms of the law, where else do you want us to equate you to the extent that you can then feel that you are equal with your others? I thought that you can assist us on that one.
Can you, as you give him the mic, I thought I got him to be saying, in practice, let's say there is an event, either it's a state event, you'll be told that ZBC go in, Herald go in, Newsday go in, but you freelance, wait a little bit, wait there. So it is in the practice and not in the law. So did I get you right? Yes. Yeah, so those, like I indicated, are issues that they can talk around as members of the media fraternity and then make proposals on how they think it can be done. I don't think it can fit into the law. I think we are running out of time. We cannot deliberate forever, especially looking at the fact that there are opportunities to also do written submissions. I'll only give an opportunity to the lady that hasn't spoken, but after that I'll come to Honorable Mpov to seek clarification.
Okay, thank you. My name is Nobesu Tungwenya. I'm a public relations practitioner and I'm a media student. I want to submit to the what the honorable in the red tie they had mentioned, Poti,
yes,
about why the fellow colleagues were keen on the executive powers, why there was so much interest in that area, with regards especially to the involvement of the minister. I think the minister should not be involved in the commission because the ministers of Zimbabwe are not usually appointed on merit. They are usually appointed on political affiliation. And those are, with that appointment, and there is no room for democracy. Whereas we have people like you that are appointed by your people from your constituencies to go and air their views to the parliament, so that when you are seated there, you are not speaking on your behalf. You are speaking on the behalf of the people that elected you. So the minister is not speaking on my behalf. So there is no need for her to be the one responsible for dissolvement and with the dissolvement of the commission, because she is not speaking on my behalf. So I would like to suggest that the parliamentarians, the executive powers should just dwell on the parliament, as the parliament are representing the citizens and not their personal interests. Thank you.
Okay, I think you are very clear. Let me ask Honorable Mpov to seek clarification.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I would just like to say that this committee is there to listen to you more than us to talk to you, as the chair has emphasized a number of times. And therefore, it's of paramount importance that our submissions, especially from professional bodies and professional people like you, who Parliament takes very seriously, your committee takes you very seriously. It's also important, I think, that the submissions, especially when you make the ones you're going to make, written ones, should avoid being very inconsistent. You know, I would like to point out one, for instance, that we should be the submission on drawing similarities between professional bodies. Because if tomorrow the conduct of that professional body is sort of changed, surely you're not going to run and say, because that professional body's conduct or whatever has been changed, therefore change us as well. You know, because there may be similarities in terms of the constitution, how you are constituted as professional bodies, but they're not identical practices or historical records in terms of the way you practice. So that is, for me, that may actually put the submissions in jeopardy. I would like also to say that the issue of criminalization, I think, has been raised quite frequently. For me, I take it that you don't want the profession to be criminalized. Practice is there to be criminalized. But I would like to remember how journalists in our previous submissions, because it's still relevant, we're still talking about media, when we were doing freedom of information. I think the journalists were very eager to say those officers who don't release information should be imprisoned. And now suddenly, no, don't criminalize. But we are not judging the merits of those arguments, but just the inconsistencies. But we know, of course, there could be slight variations in terms of the rights there. But I just wanted to, and again, I'm not giving the merits, but I'm just saying there could be contradictions somewhere there. Okay, last, because the chair will dismiss me very soon. The young man who talked of funding, where do you want the fund to come from? Very important question. Where do you want the fund to come from?
So you are the only one that is going to clarify, because that question has specifically come to you. Where do you want the fund to come from? And of course, I'll offer my brother an opportunity also, because I had taken off his time earlier on. So I'm just compensating him. Then he'll be the last. Allow me to make him to be the last.
Thank you once again. I think the funds can even come from our taxes. They can even come from the line ministry.
Okay. Thank you. My brother, you are busy on the phone. I'll end up closing the opportunity. So let me hear you.
My apologies.
It's okay.
This is really addressed to Mr. Puti, Honorable Puti, the issue that he raised. I think what the profession really is worried about is, you can even compare with what was happening with the that bill that pertains to the management of public enterprises. How much too much power was concentrated in the minister, and we know the track record of abuses. So this is basically what it is. And the sister, what she's just said, corroborates the very same sentiment, that if the minister then becomes the be-all and end-all of appointing members of the commission, that becomes a problem. What is wrong with parliamentary oversight on such a very important and critical institution? And moreover, there have been consultative meetings that have been held with the stakeholders, and all these submissions have been made, but they are not in the bill. So that does not seem to be in the spirit of fostering trust and confidence in the processes that are being led by the same ministry. You understand what I'm saying? So which entrenches the need for parliamentary oversight. Because then you are saying, okay, let's consult, let's have a tete-a-tete, let's have people talk, and then you do not then submit or include those submissions that have been made by the stakeholders. That undermines the spirit of democracy and constitutionalism and the processes that you had already declared that you're going to implement. Because in 2018, the government did say they're going to entrench media freedom. But now statutory regulation is now coming back under the guise of this bill. So that begs the question now, is there good faith? And it raises suspicion about the actual motives of the people who are leading the drawing up of this bill. So we are saying parliamentary oversight is the preferred a way of dealing with anything to do with the Media Commission. If you are going to have appointees, let's have the parliament deal with that and be involved. If you are saying journalism is a public good, if you are saying it affects the society, as Honorable Dubego has already mentioned, let's have parliament be the BO, not one single minister arrogating to himself that power. That's my comment.
Thank you. Thank you. We are the insurance as parliament. We don't know what you discussed with the executive earlier on in your discussions about this bill. But surely what we are doing now is to bring what the executive has put down into writing and said, these are the ideas that we have for the Zimbabwe Media Commission. And we now are adjudicating, literally we are adjudicating as a committee, and surely, like I indicated, we are going to fuse the ideas that came from the ministry with those that came from yourselves, with a view at the end of the day to execute our duty as parliament, one of which is to protect the constitution of Zimbabwe. So that we are going to do, and we will do it without fear or favor. My brother Dredd, what's happening? Mpe Mike Dredd angandinetsa. You might end up saying I'm sidelining him because he's a freelance journalist.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I wanted to say. Because there's no equality.
Okay.
That's why maybe Parliament can help in insisting or making it a provision that if ZBC is going to move from point B to point A, I should also be allowed to move from point A to point B.
So equality
which
of
means
treatment
equality,
of journalists.
like because you, like, okay, freelancers here know what we face on ground. So I think it's okay, for lack of better word, it's unfair to skip that from the bill because we are not equal out there. We are not.
How do you intend us to fuse it? If I can just get a suggestion from you.
The ZMC card should, whether be it, I should be allowed to file a complaint if state security stop me from covering what ZBC or state media is covering. I should be allowed to file for, I don't know how we can work it around, but...
Is that not covered in the Freedom of Information Bill? I thought it is adequately covered in the Freedom of Information.
It's in gray.
Mm-hmm.
It's covered, but it's in gray.
Okay.
It has to be specific.
Let's have your specific suggestion, if possible, and
Yes,
submit it in writing
Okay.
to the email address that I gave you and that we are going to give you again.
Okay.
So that we hear, if possible, you can even say, why can't you insert another clause between clause so, and that clause should state as follows. Then so that when we engage, it becomes easy for us to follow. I don't want us to have 2 meetings. I think those that have got further burning submissions can do so through the email that we are going to give you. Otherwise, this might not end. This might not end. That's my fear. This might not end. If it was someone who had not made a submission earlier on, I would have agreed. Allow me to call the meeting to its logical conclusion. And like I'm saying, if there is anyone who feels that they've got something burning, the email address is Clark, the normal Clark, CLERK, at parlzim.gov.zw. Once you send that email, it will definitely get to the committee. And the committee, when it sits down to deliberate, they will consider everything, including those submissions that were made orally and those that would have been made in writing. So, let me take this opportunity to thank you all for partaking in this. That's what is called a good citizen. A good citizen is one who participates in the making of laws that affect them. It's important. And Anastasia Lapana earlier on mentioned issues of community radio stations. I think it is something that is in progress. The committee is surely working on that. Very soon it will be interacting with the ministry so that we hear what the ministry has in terms of its policies for community radio stations. And then we expect them to compare their policies with the international best practices. But above that, we are muting to have some kind of a workshops across the country in conjunction with some of the development partners to specifically talk about community radio stations, because we believe that definitely sometime next year government should be starting to issue community radio licenses. So we want then to come and engage the communities, the citizens, and hear what your view is on community radio stations. I'm sure you know the real sticking points in that kind of policy. Before it comes, we need then to preempt it. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank you and ask someone to give us a closing prayer. Nobesutu, akusiphinde sizwe.
Baba wethu osezulwini lapha emhlabeni, sithanda ukubonga futhi sesiqedile umhlangano lapha besicubungela le indaba yemedia Jehova nokuthula. Ngani ungasisiza konke sikukhulumileyo Jehova namandla sihambe siye kucubungula laba esibathumileyo Jehova namandla le commission nanti bekuzwisise ngendlela lesifisa ukuthi la bekuzwisise ngakhona Jehova namandla bethi behlezi khona ngale parliament Jehova namandla bezikhumbule zonke izikhalazo ezikhulunywe ngabantu ababamela khona ngale bakhumbuze futhi Jehova namandla ukuthi eParliament kabazimelanga bona bamela isizwe bamele ama-citizens of the country. Siyabonga ngegama lomfelo wethu Jesu Kristu. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. Siyabonga. So umhlangano wethu uphelela la. Ngiyakwazi ukuthi ama-journalists, you would want to interact with your members of the committee, your parliamentarians. Lizasipha nje ithuba elifitshane lokuthi sike sinyeye sisodwa. Just give us about 5 to 10 minutes of the committee just remaining behind, and then we will interact with you in a few minutes' time. Thank you so much again for attending and for your submissions. So, honorable members and staff, can we please remain for a few minutes?
What can CITE do for you? The Center for Innovation and Technology offers a business opportunity to engage directly with your market online. We also offer media training workshops, live streaming, documentary production, and events management. For more information, visit our website and social media platforms. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. With CITE, you'll never miss a thing.